The shuttle dropped through thick gray clouds and pressed her face against the window like a child. Below her, the planet called Prime spread out in shades of black and purple. Mountains rose like broken teeth against a sky that never seemed to get fully bright. This world lived in permanent twilight, caught between a dying sun and endless shadow. She had studied the files for months. She knew the facts. There were predators, not like wolves or lions back on Earth, something older, something that had clawed its way to the top of a food chain so brutal that even their plants had learned to bite back. They stood on 8 limbs when they wanted to run, 4 when they wanted to fight. Their fur was black as space, and their eyes burned gold like trapped fire. Their claws could cut through starship hull plating. Every species in the galaxy feared them. They had never signed a peace treaty. They had never joined an alliance. They simply existed, and everyone else learned to stay away. But humans were different. Humans were stupid, some said. Humans were brave, others argued. When the first human exploration ship had stumbled into space 3 years ago, the crew had done something no other species had ever done. They had not run. They had not begged. They had simply said hello and offered to share their lunch. They had been so confused that they had let the humans live. Now, because of that strange first meeting, was here. She was trained to study alien life. She was also young, only 28, and this was her first real assignment. Ambassador had chosen her specifically. "You have a calm energy," he had told her. The respect calm. Was not feeling calm as the shuttle landed. Her heart beat fast in her chest. Her palms were wet with sweat, but she kept her face still and her breathing slow. She had practiced this. She could do this. The embassy was a human building dropped into an alien world. It sat at the edge of a settlement, surrounded by structures that looked grown rather than built. They made their homes from a kind rock that they shaped with their claws over generations. Everything had curves and points. Nothing was soft. Met her at the landing pad. He was older, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. He had been living among them for 2 years. He was still alive. That made him an expert. "Welcome to paradise," he said dryly. "Try not to die." Laughed, but it came out shaky. "That's the plan." He showed her around the embassy. It was small. Just 12 humans lived here, all of them specialists in different fields. They had a medical bay, a research lab, a common room with actual windows. Her quarters were in the outer wing, far from everything else. "Quiet out here," explained. "Good for sleeping, also far from the nursery district." "Nursery district?" "Where they keep the cubs." His face grew serious. "Stay away from there. The adults are dangerous enough, but they have control. The cubs are wild, pure instinct. Even their own parents struggle with them." Nodded, she filed the information away. That night she unpacked her things and tried to sleep. The gravity was slightly stronger here than on Earth, and her body felt heavy against the mattress. The air smelled strange, like copper and something alive. Outside her window, she could see the settlement glowing with bioluminescent lights. Shadows moved between the buildings. Tall shadows, watching shadows. She closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe. On her second day, she began her work. She walked through the embassy gardens, collecting samples of plants that had been brought from different parts of the planet. They allowed this. They seemed to find human science amusing, like watching a child play with toys. But they watched her, always watched her. She would look up from her work and see golden eyes in the darkness, silent figures standing at the edge of the light. They never spoke to her, never approached. They simply observed, the way a cat might watch a mouse it was not yet hungry enough to eat. Learned to ignore them, or at least she learned to pretend. On the third night, something changed. She was lying in bed, almost asleep, when she heard it. A soft sound, scratching. It came from her door low down near the floor. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Her blood went cold. She lay perfectly still, barely breathing. The scratching continued for maybe a minute. Then it stopped. Silence. Waited a long time before she moved. When she finally got up and went to the door, she found nothing outside. The hallway was empty. The shadows were still. But when she looked down at the door frame, she saw them. Claw marks. 4 thin lines carved into the metal right at knee height. Too small to be an adult. Too deliberate to be an accident. Something had been trying to get in. Something small. Stood there for a long time, staring at those marks. Her heart was pounding again, but underneath the fear she felt something else. Curiosity. The scratches were not angry. They were not threatening. They looked almost hopeful, like whatever had made them had simply wanted to see what was on the other side. She touched the marks with her fingertips. They were fresh. The metal was still warm. Somewhere in the distance, she heard a sound that might have been a high-pitched cry. It faded quickly into the endless twilight. Went back to bed, but she did not sleep. She lay there thinking about small claws and golden eyes and the nursery district that had warned her to avoid. She had a feeling that the nursery district was not going to avoid her. A week passed on Prime, fell into a routine. She woke early, ate breakfast with the other humans, and spent her days in the gardens collecting samples. The work was good. It kept her hands busy and her mind focused. It helped her ignore the eyes that never stopped watching. The claw marks on her door had not appeared again. She almost convinced herself that she had imagined them. Almost. Checked on her every few days. He seemed pleased with her progress. "You're adapting well," he said one morning. "Most new arrivals have nightmares for the first month. Can't handle the feeling of being watched all the time." "I grew up with 3 older brothers," said. "I'm used to no privacy." He laughed at that. It was a good sound, warm and human in this cold alien place. She learned more about thee as the days went by. They were not evil. They were not cruel for the sake of cruelty. They were simply built different. Their entire society was based on strength and survival. Weakness was not tolerated. Softness was not valued. Even their children were raised in communal nurseries, handled by caretakers who taught them to hunt and fight from the moment they could walk. No hugs asked, no cuddles. Touch is reserved for combat or mating, he explained. Affection as we understand it does not exist in their culture. They find it strange that humans touch each other so freely. "That's sad," said quietly. "That's survival," replied. "Different world, different rules." But could not stop thinking about it. She thought about the claw marks on her door. She thought about the small creature that had made them. What had it wanted? What had it been looking for? On the 8th day she found out. The afternoon was warmer than usual. Prime rarely got truly warm, but sometimes the clouds thinned enough to let a little extra light through. Had been working in the gardens for hours, bent over her samples, and her back ached. She needed a break. She found a patch of ground where a strange moss grew thick and soft. It was purple, like everything else on this planet, but it felt almost like grass beneath her fingers. She looked around. No were visible at the moment. The gardens were quiet. She lay down. The moss was surprisingly comfortable. The weak sunlight felt good on her face. She closed her eyes just for a moment, just to rest. She did not mean to fall asleep, but the warmth and the quiet pulled her down, and before she knew it, she was dreaming of Earth, green hills, blue sky, her mother's cooking. She woke slowly. Something was wrong. Something was different. Her body felt heavier than it should. There was warmth pressed against her side, concentrated in one spot near her ribs. Opened her eyes. A cub lay curled against her. It was small, no bigger than a house cat from Earth. Its fur was the same deep black as the adult's, but softer, fluffier. Its paws were too big for its body, like a puppy that had not grown into its feet yet. Its ears were tufted with silver fur that caught the light. Its eyes were closed. It was sleeping. Every muscle in its body went rigid. Her heart slammed against her ribs. This was a predator. A baby predator, yes, but a predator. Those tiny paws had claws. That small mouth had teeth. If it woke up startled, if it felt threatened, it could hurt her badly. But she did not move. She could not move. She could barely breathe. The cub shifted slightly in its sleep. It pressed closer to her warmth. A sound came from its throat, low and rumbling, realized with shock that it was purring. She lay there for what felt like forever. The cub did not wake. It simply slept, peaceful and content, as if lying against a human was the most natural thing in the world. Studied it as the minutes passed. Up close, it was beautiful. Its fur had patterns in it that she had not noticed before, subtle variations of black and gray that shifted as it breathed. Its whiskers were long and delicate. Its nose twitched occasionally, probably dreaming about hunting. 2 hours passed. His arm went numb. Her back started to ache again, but she did not move. She could not bring herself to disturb this small creature that had chosen her, of all things, as a place to rest. Finally, the cub stirred. Its eyes opened slowly, revealing amber irises that seemed to glow from within. It looked up at. She looked down at it. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Then the cub blinked. It stretched, extending its claws for just a second before retracting them. It stood up on her stomach, wobbled slightly, and jumped down to the moss. Without looking back, it trotted into the underbrush and disappeared. Lay there for another 10 minutes, trying to understand what had just happened. A cub had found her. A cub had chosen to sleep against her. A cub had trusted her enough to close its eyes in her presence. She thought about what it said. Touch was for combat or mating. Affection did not exist. But that cub had curled against her like a kitten seeking warmth. That cub had purred. Finally sat up. Her whole body was stiff. Her mind was racing. She needed to tell someone about this. She needed to report it. This could be important. This could change everything. But as she walked back to the embassy, she found herself smiling. She could not help it. That small, fluffy predator had been adorable. There was no other word for it. She did not tell anyone that day. She wanted to see if it would happen again first. The next morning, she returned to the same spot in the garden. She lay down on the purple moss. She closed her eyes. When she opened them 20 minutes later, there were 2 cubs pressed against her sides. The swarm had begun. Word spread fast among the cubs. Did not know how they communicated. Maybe they had their own language. Maybe they just followed each other. But every day when she went to the garden to rest, more of them appeared. 2 cubs became 5. 5 became 8. 8 became 12. They came in all sizes. Some were tiny, barely bigger than her hand. Others were older, closer to the size of a medium dog. They had different markings, different personalities. Some were bold and pushed their way to the best spots against her body. Others were shy and waited at the edges until there was room. But they all wanted the same thing: warmth, softness, a safe place to sleep. Became their favorite pillow. She tried to understand it at first. She read everything she could find about biology. She learned that their planet was cold, much colder than Earth. Adult had thick fur and could regulate their body temperature well, but cubs were different. Their fur was thinner. Their bodies were smaller. They lost heat quickly and had to work hard to stay warm. And humans, realized, were walking heaters. Human body temperature was higher than most species in the galaxy. To a cub, lying against a human must feel like lying next to a gentle fire. But it was more than just warmth. Noticed how the cubs behaved around her. They relaxed in a way she never saw them relax anywhere else. Their bodies went soft. Their breathing slowed. Some of them made that purring sound, a vibration deep in their chests that seemed to mean happiness. They felt safe with her. That was the only explanation. They felt safe. The adult did not feel the same way. Noticed them watching more intensely now. The golden eyes in the shadows had a new emotion in them. Confusion, maybe fear. She was doing something they did not understand, and that made them nervous. On the 14th day, one of them finally confronted her. His name was. He was the official liaison between thee and the human embassy. He stood nearly 3 meters tall when he rose to his full height, and his fur was crossed with old scars from battles did not want to imagine. But his voice was calm when he spoke to her, controlled in a way that took obvious effort. "Human," he said, "what are you doing to our young?" Was sitting in the garden at that moment, 3 cubs asleep in her lap and 2 more pressed against her back. She looked up at him and tried to seem innocent. "I'm not doing anything. They come to me." "That is not normal." His claws extended slightly, then retracted, a sign of stress. "Cubs do not seek contact with strangers. Cubs do not seek contact at all. You must be doing something." "I'm just warm," said, "and I don't move much when I sleep. Maybe they like that." Stared at her for a long time. His golden eyes searched her face for lies. She met his gaze and did not look away. Finally, he made a sound low in his throat, something between a growl and a sigh. "This will cause problems," he said. "The matriarch will hear of it." "Is that bad?" "The matriarch hears of everything. Whether it is bad depends on what she decides." He turned and walked away, his 8 limbs carrying him smoothly over the uneven ground. Watched him go. One of the cubs in her lap woke up, yawned widely showing tiny sharp teeth, and went back to sleep. She should probably be worried. She should probably stop coming to the garden. But when she looked down at the small creatures piled around her, she could not bring herself to abandon them. They needed this. She could see it in the way they slept so deeply, so peacefully. They needed something their own people would not give them. The next day, there were 17 cubs. Lay down as usual, and they swarmed her. They climbed over her legs. They burrowed under her arms. They piled on top of each other to get closer to her chest, where her heart beat steady and warm. Within minutes, she was completely covered. She could not move. Her arms were pinned to her sides by sleeping bodies. Her legs were weighted down. A particularly bold cub had climbed onto her stomach and was using her ribs as a pillow. Another one had wedged itself between her neck and shoulder, its soft fur tickling her chin. The combined weight was heavy but not painful. The combined warmth was almost too much. And the sound they made together, 17 small voices purring in harmony, vibrated through her entire body like music. Closed her eyes and accepted her fate. She did not know how long she lay there. Time lost meaning under a pile of predator cubs, but eventually she heard footsteps, human footsteps. His voice sounded strange, strained. "Are you alive under there?" "Mostly," she managed to say. "I can't move." There was a long pause, then made a sound she had never heard from him before. It took her a moment to realize he was trying very hard not to laugh. "This is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen," he said, "and I have been a diplomat for 25 years. Can you help me?" "I don't think so. If I try to move them, they might wake up angry. Cubs have been known to bite when startled." Another pause. "Also, this is too funny. I need to take a picture for the report to Earth." "I hate you." "No, you don't." She heard him walking around her, probably looking for the best angle. "The matriarch wants to see you, by the way, tomorrow. You've been summoned." His heart would have beat faster if there was room in her chest for it. "What does she want?" "I don't know, but—" his voice grew serious. "The cubs have never done this before, not with anyone, not even with their own mothers. Whatever is happening here, it's new, it's unprecedented, and they do not like unprecedented things." "Great," muttered, "that's great." "Get some rest," said. "You're going to need it." He walked away, leaving her alone with her pile of cubs. The sun was setting, painting the clouds orange and purple. The cubs purred on, oblivious to the trouble they were causing. Stared at the darkening sky, and wondered what the matriarch would do to her. She wondered if she would survive tomorrow. But for now she was warm. For now she was surrounded by soft fur and gentle sounds. For now, 17 small predators had chosen her as their safe place. She closed her eyes and let herself enjoy it. Whatever came next, she would face it. But this moment, this strange and beautiful moment, was hers. The matriarch's chamber was carved from living rock. The walls rose high above his head, covered in carvings that told stories of hunts and wars and victories she could not begin to understand. Bioluminescent crystals glowed in the ceiling, casting everything in pale blue light. The air was cold and smelled of age. Stood in the center of the room alone, had not been allowed to come with her. No other humans had been allowed. This was between her and the matriarch. She heard the sound before she saw the source. Claws clicking against stone, 8 limbs moving in perfect rhythm. Then a shadow separated from the darkness at the far end of the chamber and stepped into the light. Had thought was large, was something else entirely. She stood taller than any had seen, her body thick with muscle and covered in scars that mapped a lifetime of violence. Her fur was not pure black but streaked with silver, marks of her age and status. Her eyes were not golden but pale yellow, almost white, and they fixed on with an intensity that made her want to run. But did not run. She stood still and met that terrible gaze. Circled her slowly. Each step was deliberate, calculated. She was studying the way a scientist might study a strange new specimen, or the way a predator might study prey. Small, said finally. Her voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. Soft, slow, no claws, no fangs. How does your species survive? We work together, said. Her voice came out steady, which surprised her. We help each other. Weak helping weak makes more weakness. Sometimes it makes strength. Stopped circling. She stood directly in front of now, close enough that could smell her, a scent like iron and something wild. You have bewitched our children. Explain. I haven't done anything to them. They come to me on their own. Our cubs do not seek contact. They are taught from birth that touch is dangerous, that vulnerability is death. Leaned closer, her breath hot against face. Yet they pile upon you like newborns seeking milk. Why? Took a deep breath. She had thought about this moment. She had practiced what she would say. Because I'm warm, because I'm soft, because when they lie against me, I don't hurt them, I don't push them away, I don't judge them for wanting comfort. She paused. Your cubs are not bewitched, matriarch, they're just lonely. Silence filled the chamber. Pale eyes bored into, searching for something, did not know if she found it. Lonely, repeated. The word sounded strange in her mouth, like she was tasting something unfamiliar. You believe our cubs lack something. I believe all young creatures need warmth and touch to grow healthy. On my world, we've studied this. Bobbies who are not held, who are not touched, they become sad, they become sick. Sometimes they die even if they have food and water, kept her voice gentle. I don't know if cubs are the same, but I know they seek me out. I know they sleep more peacefully against me than they do anywhere else. That has to mean something. Was silent for a long time. Then she stepped back and made a gesture with one of her forelimbs. You will be tested. Stomach dropped. Tested how? You will spend 1 full day in the nursery district, among all our cubs. If they harm you, it proves you have disrupted their natural instincts with your alien presence. If they do not, did not finish the sentence. And if they don't harm me, what then? The matriarch turned away. We will see. 2 guards escorted to the nursery district. She had never been there before, had warned her to stay away. Now she was walking straight into it. The district was a maze of connected chambers, each one filled with soft bedding and climbing structures and toys designed to develop hunting skills. Hundreds of cubs lived here, ranging from newborns to adolescents nearly ready to join adult society. Caretakers watched over them, but the cubs mostly raised themselves, learning through play and competition. When entered, everything stopped. Every cub in sight turned to look at her, hundreds of golden eyes fixed on this strange, soft creature that had invaded their space. The air felt electric with tension. Took a breath, then she sat down on the floor. For a moment nothing happened. The cubs stared. The caretakers stared, watched from a raised platform, her pale eyes giving nothing away. Then one cub broke from the crowd. It was small, one of the tiny ones recognized from the garden. It walked toward her with careful steps, sniffed her hand, and climbed into her lap. That was all it took. The swarm began. Cubs came from everywhere. They poured out of side chambers and dropped from climbing structures. They pushed past each other in their hurry to reach her. Within minutes was buried. Cubs covered her legs, her arms, her back. They climbed onto her shoulders and burrowed under her hair. They pressed against her from every direction until she could barely breathe. She lay back slowly, carefully, and let them pile on top of her. The caretakers made sounds of alarm. This was not normal. This was not natural, but raised a paw and they fell silent. Hours passed. Cubs came and went, taking turns in the warmest spots. Some fell into deep sleep for the first time in months. Some aggressive cubs, ones the caretakers had marked as problems, grew calm and gentle against warmth. And one small cub, sickly and weak, crawled to the space between its neck and shoulder and fell into the deepest sleep of its short life. Lost count of how many cubs touched her that day. 30, 50, maybe more. Her body ached, her muscles cramped, but she did not push a single one away. When the day finally ended, had to be helped to her feet. Her legs did not work properly after so many hours of stillness. Cub fur covered her clothes, her hair, her skin. She probably smelled like a now. Descended from her platform and approached. The old matriarch looked at for a long moment. Then she looked at the nursery, where cubs were still watching the human with longing eyes. "You survived," said. "They didn't want to hurt me," replied. "They just wanted to be close." Was silent. Something shifted in her pale eyes, something that might have been the beginning of understanding. "Stay," she said finally. One word, one command. Blinked. "Stay for how long?" "As long as the cubs need you." Turned and began to walk away. "You are no longer just a visitor here, human. You are something new." Stood in the nursery, covered in fur, barely able to feel her legs, and realized her life had just changed forever. She smiled. This was exactly where she wanted to be. 6 months changed everything. No longer lived in the outer wing of the human embassy. She had quarters in the nursery district now, a small room that they had carved just for her. It was warm, warmer than anywhere else on the planet, because the cubs had a habit of sneaking in at night to sleep near her. The caretakers had given up trying to stop them. Her title was official now, Cub Keeper. It was a position that had never existed before in history. The matriarch had created it specifically for her, and the document announcing it had been carved into stone and placed in the Hall of Records where it would last forever. Still did her xenobiology work when she could, but most of her time belonged to the cubs. She played with them. She let them climb on her. She held the sick ones and comforted the scared ones and let the wild ones burn off their energy chasing her around the nursery. And every afternoon she napped. The cubs counted on it. They arranged themselves around her sleeping spot in order of seniority, the youngest and smallest getting the prime positions against her body, the older ones forming protective circles around the edges. It was organized chaos. It was beautiful. Other humans came to help, had sent reports back to Earth, and volunteers had arrived on the next transport ship, trained them in what she jokingly called the art of professional cuddling, body temperature regulation, staying still for hours, recognizing the signs that a cub was about to wake up grumpy. They watched these new humans with the same suspicion they had shown at first, but slowly, carefully, they began to accept them. 1 human became 2, 2 became 5, 5 became a small team of warmth givers who spread throughout the nursery district. The cubs thrived. That was the part that surprised everyone. Caretakers reported that behavioral problems were down, sleep quality was up, even physical health improved. Cubs who had been sickly grew stronger. Cubs who had been aggressive grew calmer. The whole nursery felt different. And it was not just the cubs who changed. Noticed it first among the younger adult. They would pass by the nursery and pause at the entrances, watching the humans interact with the cubs. They saw the touching, the holding, the gentle sounds humans made when comforting a crying child. Then they started asking questions. "Why do you make that sound?" one young asked. "The soft humming when a cub is upset." "It's called a lullaby," explained. "It helps them feel safe." "Can you teach me?" Taught her, and then she taught others. And slowly, quietly, the sound of voices humming human lullabies began to spread through the nursery district. Some adult went further. They began experimenting with touch among themselves, a paw resting briefly on a shoulder, two friends sitting closer than protocol allowed. It was small, it was hidden, but it was happening. The matriarch noticed everything. One evening, she came to quarters unannounced, was reading a book from Earth, three cubs asleep in her lap and two more draped across her feet. She looked up in surprise when the massive form of the matriarch filled her doorway. "Do not rise," said. "You would disturb them." Settled back. "Is something wrong?" "No." Moved into the room, her movements careful to avoid waking the cubs. She found a spot near the wall and lowered herself to the floor. For a long moment, she simply watched. Her pale eyes moved from the sleeping cubs to gentle hands to the peaceful expression on the human's face. "We thought warmth was weakness," said finally. Her voice was quiet, almost soft. "For generations, we taught our young that need was dangerous, that wanting comfort was the first step toward death." "And now?" asked. "Now I watch my people's children sleep more peacefully than any generation before them. Now I see our young adults learning songs that calm instead of battle cries that excite. Now I wonder," she trailed off. "Wonder what?" Was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I wonder what I might have become if someone had held me when I was small." Felt tears prick at her eyes. She did not try to hide them. "It's not too late, to learn new things." Made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. It was hard to tell with. Then, slowly, awkwardly, she reached out one massive paw and rested it on shoulder. The touch lasted barely a second. It was clumsy and uncertain, like a child's first attempt at something new. But it happened. A matriarch, ruler of an entire world, had initiated gentle contact with a human. Smiled. "That's a good start." Her paw and rose to leave. At the doorway she paused and looked back. "You have changed us, human. I do not know yet if it is for better or worse, but you have changed us." Then she was gone. 3 months later, a Galactic Council meeting convened on a neutral station. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the impossible news coming from Prime. The fearsome, the galaxy's most dangerous predators, were seeking diplomatic relations with other worlds. Real relations. Peaceful relations. Everyone wanted to know how. Everyone wanted to know why. Ambassador stood before the council. He was older now, grayer, but there was a lightness in his eyes that had not been there before. "You want to know our secret," he said. "How humanity did what no other species could do." The representatives leaned forward. They expected talk of clever strategies, political maneuvering, perhaps subtle manipulation. Smiled. "We sent them someone who knew how to nap." Confused silence filled the chamber, but did not explain further. Some things could not be explained. They had to be felt. Back on Prime, lay in the embassy garden under the eternal twilight sky. 34 cubs were piled on top of her and around her, a living blanket of soft fur and gentle warmth. She could not move her arms. She could not feel her legs. Her back would hurt for days. She had never been happier. One of the cubs stirred and looked up at her with sleepy golden eyes. It made a small sound, questioning. "I'm not going anywhere," whispered. "Go back to sleep." The cub chirped contentedly and burrowed deeper into her side. The purring chorus swelled around her, dozens of small voices vibrating in harmony. Above her the clouds parted briefly, and for just a moment true sunlight touched her face. It was warm. Everything was warm. Closed her eyes and smiled. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not weapons, not technology, not clever tricks. Just warmth, just softness, just the simple courage to be vulnerable in a universe that taught everyone to be hard. The predator cubs had found the human. They had swarmed her until she could not move. And in doing so, they had changed everything.